Hi, I'm Laura Sarchet, the Inclusive Higher Education GA at the University of Rochester. We are in the final part of our 9-part series on self-advocacy teaching skills, and we are talking about goal setting. Following this session, you will have developed an understanding of goal setting skills and how to help your students set and monitor their own goals, and identify an action step to take in your own practice. So I want to talk about SMART goals, which is something you may have heard of already. And these are ways to make sure that your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. So we don't want vague goals that are kind of nebulous and maybe don't have a specific way of showing whether or not we have met them. So here's a goal setting template that we can use. And again, this breaks something down into a process. So we can look at school goals, we can look at personal goals. You can also look at the other domains that we've talked about in the previous videos in this series. And you can help students come up with SMART goals for a week, for a semester. You can do short-term, long-term. And then after they come up with a SMART goal, thinking about behaviors that they will change to work towards that goal. So we're never going to meet a goal that we haven't met already if we don't change our behavior. So what is a specific action step that the student can do to reach this goal? And then what resources or people will they use for helping them? So, and this is also a process that we can use for our own goal setting. So here's an example of a vague goal and then converting it into a SMART goal that's more specific. So in general, a student might say, oh, I will study more. That's my goal. I want to study more this semester. But we can help them make that more measurable, make that more specific, more achievable by breaking it down into a smaller amount that's achievable for them. By saying, I will make flashcards tomorrow and use them for 15 minutes every day after class. So this is time-based too. So it's an action step that they have to take tomorrow. And then a very measurable, if they do the 15 minutes, they do. If they don't do the 15 minutes, they haven't met the goal. So that's a way to kind of convert our goals into SMART goals. So a little activity for you to do. I'd like you to rewrite these vague goals in SMART goal format. So thinking about specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based, how could you incorporate those into these vague goals? So take a couple minutes and do that. If you need to pause the video. So monitoring is also really important when we're talking about goal setting. So if a student has a long-term goal, or if you have a long-term goal, we want to do a little check-in after maybe a week or two. So have they made progress towards their goal? Have you made progress towards your goal? And how do you know? So this is specific evidence. So if you're writing a research proposal and you have half of the literature review done, that would be specific evidence that you have made progress towards the goal. What behaviors do you need to change in order to keep accomplishing this goal? What supports do you need? Did you accomplish the goal, and how do you know? So again, this would be like later in the process. What are specific pieces of evidence that show that you've made progress or accomplished that goal? So these are questions you can use with your students as well. You can have them look at goal setting and set goals at the beginning of the semester, and then do a check-in, maybe the second or third week of class, and review those goals that they wrote at the beginning of the semester and see how they're doing, and then check in at the end of the semester as well. So here's an example of a student who had some practice with long-term goals. So at the beginning of the semester, he had some goals about he wanted to have a 70% grade in his art class. And his behaviors that he wrote down were to listen and not care about being perfect, because he will never finish his projects if he was always worried about perfection. So he was looking at teachers and peers as resources for him. And then his long-term goal by the end of the semester was to have a B or an A, so he specified in his technology class. And the behavior that he was working towards was having a positive and passionate attitude and focusing on work instead of social activities during class. So these are great examples of specific behaviors that are tied to a SMART goal that students have set. So let's think about our action step. How can you incorporate this practice of goal setting in your classroom? Is this something that you could do with your students? Ask a colleague to help keep you accountable for your accessibility work, view another resource that we have, set up professional development, or ask me to come into one of your classes. And as always, share other ideas with me that you're doing in your classroom. You can reach me at ihega@rochester.edu. Thank you.